I think today's going to be a bit of a different episode. We're just over day 800 here in Project Ozone 2, Kappa Mode, and I'm having a bit of an issue with logistics pipes. And for a little backstory here, I've got quite a few pipes. My FPS for the most part, surprisingly, is hovering around 60. Occasionally it drops out, if I walk into a room like this, but that's to be expected. But every once in a while, I have a pipe that just seems to break and stop working. And this is my biggest offender right now. I've never had this happen until tonight, but basically this sieving setup here is always running. I got a little bit of redstone control here to stop making certain materials like the gravel and the sand and all that, but these sieving setups here for the resources, they're always running, so stuff's always getting voided. But what's happened now is it's sending all that stuff this way through this long pipe, going to that chest, which is my default chest. It's the only one in the system that's set up to a default route. It's the only guy that's set to default. So anything that doesn't have a home goes here. And you'll notice all these drops. Even something like redstone that I know I don't have a lot of is not going into the drawer anymore. Now I could break this connector, right, and replace it. But the problem is you got to reset your gates, and that kind of gets old. Two things that I would like to try. One of them is the logistics pipes power is right here. It's the furthest down this line from basically this point, right? And I was saying I was having issues with this project here, making me salt. When I tied it to this line, the system couldn't see it, so I had to run it up. So I think I'm pretty much operating at the end of the pipe length, whatever that can be. So one option is taking that little box there and sticking it like, here somewhere, kind of more in the middle. The next option, which is one of the options I might actually do, is making one of these inventory system connectors. It's basically like a subsystem that uses the ender chest as kind of the remote link between them. You'll notice I have a bunch set up here. It would help me too, because right now when I request something like, Yellorium or emeralds, it takes forever for those items to get sent all the way to my remote backpack. So splitting the network up with an ender chest, right here would help. Another weird little quirk I like to talk about is glass. The other day, I tried to ask for a stack of glass, just like you see here, except I had 0. And I clicked request, but it knows, hey, you've got a recipe programmed. And so what's actually requested that glass is this connector here, because that's connected to this brown little remote pad that I'm holding. So it's going to send glass to that guy. But it's talking to the diamond furnace array through this connector right here. So as I hop, skip, and jump over to the diamond furnace array, you'll see here's the other connector. And what I've actually found is simply taking the card out. It's probably going to break something because I've made a request. It's still green, but if I click back on it, it updates it and it breaks. I don't know what this does. I click it. Doesn't really show anything. So taking another look at glass here, we can see that it's actually disappeared. That's interesting. I wasn't actually expecting that. I suspect it has a lot to do with chunk loading, even though you'll see here, this whole area is chunk loaded. 44 chunks. We go here, we pull this card out, we click on it again, it shows it's unhappy. Boom. If we search for glass again, we can see it. And if we ask for glass, it's missing 10 sand. Interesting. So this is exactly the glitch that I was having earlier. I've recreated it accidentally. But we know you're not missing sand because sand is right here. So what's really quirky is this connector that's connected to this brown thing that I'm holding, this little remote pad, knows that glass is a recipe through that, And it also knows sand exists because there's 76k sand over there at the saving setup. So again, we've got that much sand. We try to ask for glass. Aha. And now it knows about it. So I don't exactly know what's happening, but I assume I am operating at the threshold, like the max capacity threshold of logistics pipes. Maybe you're not supposed to make this many remote systems, but I plan on making more. And I think I actually got to split this network up because this tower that I'm in, all these pipes actually go up to all those tinker smelteries up here. So this whole network, and going up again, this whole network here. So I'm thinking I should use remote chests, ender chests rather, to kind of divide these into three or four more networks. Although as I say that, I'm kind of realizing maybe they are the problem. Any astute observers are going to notice that there's a minimap down here. I installed a mod called Opis. It's a Java profiler for 1.7.10 versions of Minecraft. Newer versions, like 1.12.2 and newer, have something called Spark. So I'm going to have a look at it. Alright, I'm going to break the fourth wall here, but getting both of these things to show up in OBS, my screen recording software is a bit of a pain because it kind of sees both of these jar files, the game and the OBS thing here, as the same application. But anyways, what I want to do is run Opis, and I believe you have to be the server operator, like the admin, to run it. But what it's going to do is it's going to, for a few seconds here, run. It's going to take a snapshot of what's actually happening in the game right now. So all the data you see, not all the data, but most of the data I believe is a snapshot. It's not live updated, you know, besides this graph here. But you can see a little bit of a lag spike when we're running the profiler, which is to be expected, and that's fine. I don't exactly understand a lot of this. I guess I'm just going to talk about how I understand it, and I guess if anybody knows better, they can correct me, which is always great. I don't know why it has the network up and down. I guess it is a local server, but still, you know, it is a single player world. It knows that I've got the 44 chunks chunk loaded through that FTP utilities that I showed earlier. And that's really it, just a summary. Having these tick times milliseconds here low, that's good. So tracking, we got me, that's it. I suppose if you had another player on a multiplayer server, you could analyze it. You could teleport to them, you could pull them to you. Entities. You can actually click on these headers to sort. So I can see, ooh, we got lots of experience orbs. That's actually a little surprising for me to see. You can kill stuff, but I don't want to kill my cows, of course. They're very, very special. What else here? Tile entities. So obviously, logistics pipes and Ender IO conduits are my most significant tile entity. And dimension. Again, we're only operating in the overworld, which is the same kind of stats. And this is a really good number. My understanding with this is if you have a single instance where the time is over 50 milliseconds to update, 50, that's like a lag spike. That actually is less than 20 ticks per second, if that makes sense. And what I've found personally through playing other versions of modern Minecraft, that when you have a mean tick time here of like anything over 20 to 30 milliseconds, that's an average, right? So potentially you've got instances where the tick time's over 50, which is when you might notice the odd lag spike. So having something really low like this below 12 is good from my personal experience. This is kind of the really interesting one, the server timing page. Tile entities. What's cool about this is if I sort by the worst, I believe I know which one this is going to be, but I can click teleport here, and it actually teleports my player to the chunk, and it highlights this exact entity that I'm having issues with. which of course makes sense that it's this one, because this by far is the guy doing the most work. And he's also kind of broken too, because he's just straight up not shoving items into here. You know what I'm just realizing? If I click the reset highlight here, I gotta do something real quick. I'm just kind of standing here realizing, what if this guy is trying to push items this way instead of this way? So I was gonna move that down here, but then of course it causes more issues, right? But if I click here, aha, look at that. There's no way to configure this to say, hey, look at the thing down. Some of those cards have an option. So this thing should really move. It's kind of scuffed, but let's try it. So I pulled all these items out. Hit B to get the magnet. Compressed dust. Got too many AU. So I think me just sitting here filming and talking about my issues, I realized a really obvious oversight. But it is really wild, I'm just noticing it now. Like, this world's pretty old. So I'll have to look back at my footage to see if it's always been like that. So back here, we've fixed it. I want to run Opis again. So 1092, negative 246. Grab another snapshot. Okay, I wanted to see if it actually got better, but it's actually getting worse, which I guess makes sense because it's actually using that single entity to push more items into the storage drawer. So it's not the end of the world, but if I want to kind of like refactor my base and improve things, one of the first things I'm going to want to do is, you know, break this up or change how this system works. Because even all these little cables lighting up on and off the red, blue, and green lines, I'm sure is what causes a lot of the block updates and the lagginess. But you can kind of see how it's cool. If I go to the second most offending item here, I can go teleport. And I'm here at the mob farm. And this is interesting. So it's highlighting this pipe, this unrouted transport pipe. And the weird thing about this is I'm using a redstone signal to talk to the Mindfactory Reloaded RedNet cable to tell it when to turn my system on and off. So it's not even handling items. I'm just kind of abusing it. I'm using that gate to see, is this guy full? And if it is full, disable the farm. So even though it's not doing anything at all, this farm's actually turned off manually through this switch. Even though that's not doing anything, it's the second most, takes the longest to update, which is kind of interesting. So I'll click reset, gets rid of that. That's cool, right? What do we got here? Mean value. The highest average is the sprinkler. Teleport here. Oh, you can't teleport here. Let's see. Oh, I can teleport through the tile entity page, but not through the type page. Interesting. Oh, this is cool. It gives you a count. I guess it's the same info. Huh. It just gives you a summary, I guess. Again, here you can look at your worst offender. My worst offender is this particular fluid cow as opposed to all my other fluid cows. So it makes you wonder, what's he doing different? I could pull him towards me, but I don't want to do that. I'll teleport. And it's one of these cows. And if I had to guess, there's just a bunch of cows kind of crammed in a close space here, and they're AI. Like anytime you have mobs, whether it's, you know, zombies or cows, they're always pathing, right? I think in newer versions of Minecraft, they've made AI, or they've made mods to kind of kill the AI to make it kind of smarter, because it definitely uses a lot of processing time trying to make these guys figure where they can walk, because they want to go somewhere and then they realize they can't. That's my understanding anyway. So this is a really good summary page too to understand, hey, do I have... Thought I put that minecart away. Do I have a bunch of experience orbs? Like maybe you've got a mob farm that's going out of control and you've got orbs kind of falling on the ground everywhere. So this kind of lets you know, hey, I need to handle that better. Dropped item. Suppose you can find it from the tile entity page. You could actually go and look for it, maybe. Not sure about that one. And I suppose this type of stuff, handler and events, is kind of more of programmer nerd stuff. Speak anyway. Like everything kind of has an event. You can see the most costly event is stuff I don't even understand. But of course, logistics pipes, that's to be expected. I've got so many. Chunks. This is kind of cool. You can find out which chunk is taking the longest to update. I can teleport to it. And again, if you hit F3 here, you'll notice my X and Z coordinates. At the very end of it there, it says C:71 and C -10. Now, why would it be this chunk? I'm not sure why that would have the highest update time. Again, this is not a continuous updating number, right? It's a snapshot, so maybe something was loading in. But the next highest one, I know exactly where this one is. You think, oh, it's the Aether portal. But no, it's the sieving setup. That guy right there is in the corner of that chunk. And then events. Again, this is kind of more for programmer troubleshooting, I suppose, but you can see. My understanding, this is how the Forge mod loader works. It kind of captures events happening from different mods, so you're going to have some mods that are more intensive on the back end, but I don't really know how to parse this stuff at all. Client, I don't think I mentioned it before, but even in a single player world, you're running on a server, which is when I click the run Opis command on this page or on the summary page, that's kind of doing the server profile. If you come to this page, I guess you're running a render, which is kind of the visual thing. Because the Minecraft game for a long time is split between being a server and a client if you're playing single player. But what's going to happen here is it's going to show you graphically what's the most intensive. And for me, it makes sense having an ender chest as the most, because in terms of rendering, you're able to color these things. So they're kind of unique. I guess it makes sense. Same with the turbine. That thing graphically is spinning. Updates are happening. So that makes sense. I have no clue what that means. Probably not great. Again, more stuff. And of course, I'm not going to see any network stuff really. Is it loading? It's weird why there's an outbound, no inbound. I guess still, it being a server client single player, it's sending data through a network. And then debug. Orphan tiles. Refresh. I don't know why, but a lot of immersive engineering multi-block structures, like the coke oven, show up here in the blast, but they're not actually abandoned. I can see them, I'm using them, it's part of my furnace. So I don't know why they show up or if it's a problem, but I'm not overly worried about it right now. Again, if I had to pick a worst offender, it's going to be this logistics pipe right there. So that's a cool mod and all. I would like to keep it on my game, but the fact that it has this map here that I can't figure out how to install kind of makes it annoying. I did find that for GregTech New Horizons, the most popular 1.7.10 mod pack that's been around for a while now, it actually has a custom version of this Opis mod that removes the map. I tried to run it, but my server crashed because of other dependencies and conflicts. I ran into that issue a few times actually. Like using NEI, GregTech New Horizons has a better NEI version. I think it's actually JEI has been backported. I tried to use that, but then all these dependencies, and I was uploading, dozens of mods, not just one mod. So I kind of just gave up with that.